Good morning, customers and anybody else that might be watching this. I just want to drop a quick training video in just to clarify how we need to communicate to our mechanics in the event that something goes wrong with our car. The first thing, and this might seem basic to some people, but it does create a bit of confusion, and that's determining the left and right side of a car. The left and right side of a car is always determined from the driver's seat. So it doesn't matter whether it's left-hand drive or right-hand drive, it's always taken from the driver's seat. So when you're sitting in the vehicle, you're sitting on the right side of the car. If you're sitting in the front passenger side, you're sitting on the left side of the car. So if you were to then say to me, I've got green coolant leaking out of my car and it seems to be coming from the left side, we'd be looking at that side of the car. I have had it the other way round where someone said the left side because they're doing it from where they're standing, and that is the left side looking at the car from where you're standing, but it's not the left side of the car. This is the left side and this is the right side. So that clears up the first thing. The next thing I want to touch on is starting a vehicle. Is it starting? Is the ignition lights on? What problems do we have there? So the first thing I get often is one of the most common terminologies. This is, okay, key out, key in, ignition off. Everything is off. Okay, so the first thing I often get is the car won't turn on. Okay, so I need to clarify that. Vacuum cleaners turn on, hair dryers turn on, any electrical appliance, you flick a switch and it turns on. A car doesn't turn on. A car first cranks over, you've got a starter motor turning the engine over, and then it starts up and runs. So just to run through that, okay, this is off obviously. This first stage is accessory, and that allows you to turn radios and some cars wipers. I think this one will allow me to put wipers on in the accessory mode, things like that, but the car still isn't on. The next stage is ignition on. So that's quite important. I need to know, does the ignition lights all come on? If at this stage there is nothing on the dash whatsoever, and then you go to the final stage of cranking and still nothing happens, then I know we've got a power supply problem. If you have the ignition lights on, you've got all the reds on, and you turn to the final stage, which is called starting up a car, not turning it on, starting it up. That's the engine cranking over, and then if everything's running, it will start up. So I'll just demonstrate that. I've got to turn everything right off and on again. Okay, so that you can now see that the engine's running on the tachometer. That's the engine RPM, and you heard the engine go. That was the starter motor working. What I could determine from that is, firstly, if you turned it all the way to the end and nothing happened, we've got a power supply problem to the starter motor. But all the ignition lights were on at the ignition stage. Demonstrate that, go back again. I've got all my ignition lights on, everything works there, but I turn it the last bit and nothing happens. So then I know that we've got firstly power to the car, but we've not got power down to the starter motor. So that's rather helpful. Now, if the starter motor is turning over fine, but the engine's not firing up, so then the car's just going, that noise you're hearing there is the starter motor, and then you're not getting the engine starting as a result. So then I know, well, the battery's good, the starter motor's good, all the earth cables are fine, everything to do with a good power supply to make the engine start up is not an issue. And then I'm going to be looking for something different again. Now, all this information is rather helpful because it just allows me to determine what I need to bring to the breakdown site. So a quick recap. I'm now, okay, ignition off, accessory on, ignition on, cranking, and now engine running. Now it may be that the engine will run, but you can't drive away, it will stall or something like that. All that once again is helpful information. So that's the second thing. Now the third thing I wanted to just briefly touch on is warning lights. So we're back inside the car, we put the ignition on and a number of warning lights come up. Quite a lot initially, but some of those lights go out straight away. They're basically, the first reason they come on and then go out, first reason they come on is to show you that the warning lights are working. The second reason they'll come on and then go off is just to do with like this airbag light here. That's the seatbelt warning light. See the airbag light just there, and then it'll go out. Now that's the airbag warning system. Or the airbag check system, I should say. That's just done a self-check, determined everything's okay, the light's gone out because it's all working properly. The other one, if you look right here in the middle of the dash, okay, this one here, that there is, on this particular car, is the traction or the skid control system. Also associated with the anti-locking braking system, as they work together to control the car from sliding in icy and slippery conditions. So you'll see that done a self-check on itself and went out because all the systems are working. Now this light over here is your check engine light. People often describe this to me as a square box with what looks like a propeller on the front and on the top. Well, essentially the front one is the propeller. It's a crude shape of an engine, and the top one is actually like symbolizing an air filter. So it's a very crude symbol of an engine itself. Now if that comes on while you're driving, you've got a problem in your engine management system, and you need to check it out. It's not critical. Any orange light isn't critical, but if you have a red light, it's critical. You need to stop driving, pull over, organise a tow truck and get it to me. Otherwise you could cause damage. So just to emphasise, red lights, danger, orange lights, you need to get it checked out, but not critical. Okay, the only red light I would say that is not critical would be your airbag warning light. So down in the bottom right hand corner of the screen is the airbag warning lights come on and gone back off just now because everything's okay. If that happens to come on and stay on, firstly it's telling you that I've had to shut down, there's a problem in my system, and because I've shut down, your airbags will no longer work. Now that's the only thing that's changed, and if you go for a registration inspection, an airbag warning light or an ABS warning light, anything like that, you will see my ABS come on. I'll just cycle the ignition switch again. If you have a look at the seatbelt warning light, over here you will see the ABS light come on top. In fact, I'll just zoom in. Alright, so if I cycle off, cycle back on, there's the ABS warning light, and the one next to it was to do with brake pad wear. That orange one just to the right of it with the dotted lines in this round a circle, that was to do with my brake pad wear. So ABS lights, airbag lights, they're all registration failures, and you do need to get them rectified because the RMS have said if it's fitted it's got to work.